Hi, it's another week, and yeah, welcome to part two, or episode two, shall I say, of building my business, building my brand, and just sharing some insights and new things I've learned. So, since the last video, I've actually started a podcast. I started it back in January, but actually had our second episode last week, and with a guy called Matthew from Level Up. He's a great friend of mine, and he is all about leveling up, providing a platform for people to be their best selves, but also to network, to provide a space for young people to understand more about their career and more about um, why they want to do what they want to do, which I think is really cool. And there's a lot to discuss on that. So hopefully by the time this episode comes out, I'll have the link in the description where you can check out that episode and that podcast for our King's Peace YouTube. But also, what I really want to talk today is about when I was on that episode for our podcast, and we're delving into identity and um, neglecting ourselves and self sabotage. It really made me think more about how you have different identities when you level up or level down, as per se. And what I mean by that is when you go through a growth phase and let's say, for example, you're on the next level of business, you go from maybe making £0 to £500 to 500 to £1,000. That requires a new level of thinking and a new identity that you have to embrace in order to actually maintain that 500 to 1,000 a month, and then being able to actually grow on top of that. Because if you had the same thinking um, when you're at 500 to 1,000k a month, 1,000k, £1,000 a month, as you did when it was 0 to 500, then you're not going to make any money, or you're not going to make that much money, and you're not going to grow. And maybe you'll plateau, but you definitely will not grow, and more than likely you will just drop back to the 0 to 500. And that really made me think in terms of whether that's going to the gym, whether that's in relationships or business. Every single time that you're in a new phase, you have to embrace a new identity. And with that, that means you have to journal. And I know I've got my own journaling brand and own journaling business, but you have to journal because you have to break down what that new identity requires of you, but also you have to solidify that as well. You have to do some cathartic release work in terms of your limiting beliefs and what you thought back then, and getting rid of that old thinking, getting rid of the old thinking that's going to sabotage you or keep you where you are when you really want to grow. And I think that's so important because when I think back to times where I really wanted to elevate myself, I maintained my old thinking, and that just stunted my growth over and over and over again. It's like a cycle repeating itself, because how can you get new results or the life that you want or the next phase that you want to get to when you keep thinking about the old things in your mind? Can I do this? Am I worthy? Do I have what it takes? I don't know if I can be the one to pull this off. All that thinking will just keep you where you're at. And it made me really realize that there's so much more to growth than we realize. And that's why, as I said before, the journaling is so important, because I've had to really dive into that and break down my psyche of where these limiting beliefs come from and how I can replace it. And since then, yeah, I can say that I'm in the next phase of business where it's about being more consistent. It's about embracing my network and actually making those connections and leveraging their mind so I can actually help grow my business, help other people as well, because it's not just about growth of my business, it's about how I can impact other people. And I can't do that if I'm not at the level I want to be at, right? Because how can you help other people when you can't help yourself? So, for sure, I've definitely been working on that myself, and that's something I wanted to take away and really share what I'll be, working towards on myself, because I recognize these patterns, and I'm someone that can recognize patterns really quickly, especially with people, able to do a deep dive into their personality, what they're like, their trauma, their past, and recognize all those patterns. However, when it comes to myself, although I can recognize that, it's really hard to implement, and it's really hard to change those patterns when, even though I can see them, because again, it's about habits. It's about the those neurons that are in a certain pathway and they're just firing even though you are conscious of that. And it's really about rewiring that subconscious, right? So yeah, that's what I'm going to be working on, and I'm hoping that that's going to be a big change in business when it comes to the next few weeks and few months, because man, I'm so excited in terms of the projects that I got going on. First of all, with our podcast, just being more consistent with the content on that, but also like wanting to form an actual community. You know, everyone that's watching these videos and buying the journals, just being a part of the community where we can actually have meetups. And when I say meetups, I don't mean just doing whatever. It's like actually form a community where people can come to it, and we can share best practice, but also just allow men to be men. And when I say that, I mean just a space for us to laugh, to banter, to share best practice, but to really feel like kids in a way, because I think that's something that's really missing in today's society, especially with men, is that we're always grinding, right? Imagine the grind, work, money, go gym. It's like, where's that playtime? Where's that switching off? Because something that I went to a mastermind yesterday, and it was talking about the importance of switching off and getting that good sleep. And if you don't, then your cortisol is always at a high, which means that your ability to do good work, good deep work, and actually being able to solve your problems in business and in life is at an all-time low. Think about it. If you're constantly stressed and constantly thinking about money and having not much time to, or you have time but you don't think you want to have that time to go and socialize with others, then your stress levels are going to be high all the time. Your cognitive function is going to be at an all-time low, and you want to make £100,000 or 10k, but the decision making that's required for that isn't there, because you're constantly thinking about the future, constantly thinking about what you can do now, and you're thinking all this work that you're doing is going to get to somewhere, but it's not going to get to anywhere, because the decisions that are really important and intelligent decisions to grow your business forward just won't come when you're in that state. And that's something I realized in myself as well, is that I had been in that state for a long time, over the last couple of months, and it really stagnated my business. And it's really about understanding myself, understanding the work I need to put in, but also how I can switch myself off when required, so I can actually make those executive decisions, and how it can really actually impact and grow my business. So yeah, that's something I've learned and I've been learning, and yeah, just some exciting things in the future in terms of apps that I want to make, um, and communities that I want to build around this business and this brand. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.